Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. I'm smiling a little bit this morning. I'm joined by Steve Heapy again, CEO of Jet2 Holidays, and we might even get a smile out of you, Steve, mightn't we?
I had a little brief smile earlier on, and that's my quarter for the day, but I did have a small one. But
okay, all right. Well, I think we'll be grateful for that.
yeah,
I mean, I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, really, but there was a little bit of good news, wasn't there, last night? We were waiting a long time for Grant Shapps to make an announcement. Of course, the inevitable tweets and leaks were happening, but we have been given something.
yeah. I mean, the Northern Ireland government announced before the UK government. The UK government were a bit slow in making the announcements, but we finally got some clarity. And I think trying to be more positive than on previous chats we've had, it's certainly a step in the right direction. However, it's just that it's a small step. I think it was it Confucius said, "Journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step." Well, there is a long way to go.
Yeah.
So I'd give it a cautious welcome, worthy of a brief, slight smile, I think. So a cautious welcome, but there's still a number of issues that remain outstanding. I mean,
let's just get into the specifics,
yes,
just in case I'm sure people know, but obviously we've seen Malta added to the pure green list.
yeah,
but then we've had a number of other destinations, the Balearic Islands, Madeira, and some Caribbean islands added to the green watch list. So just, is that still to be welcomed, or do we then obviously, is it still a bit of a kind of anxiety for people?
Well, it's better than amber, but it only just. I mean, it does give the government an easier path to pulling it off sale at very short notice if they want to. Now, we've not been told the criteria that the government would use to assess whether something should be pulled off the green watch list or not. And this is one of the big problems ongoing. We still don't have the output of the government review. We don't know the parameters that are applied to establish what the traffic light colour is. What is an acceptable vaccination limit? What's an acceptable infection limit? So it makes it very difficult to plan. I think the government said it's led by the data, but we don't really know the extent of the review of the data. And then, of course, there is, it has happened in the past, and there is the possibility it will continue to happen, that the data is overlaid with a political element as well. So it doesn't therefore make any sense. So cautious welcome. If it was a school report, I'd probably give it 4 out of 10. Please try harder. Although at my school, I would have got a big beating with a stick. But in this, modern world, 4 out of 10, please try harder, I think.
Okay, all right. I mean, you talk about that transparency of the data. It's been something that's been a bone of contention the whole way along. And actually, I heard boss of EasyJet Holidays, Gary Wilson, on the news this morning. He was saying, it still doesn't make sense. So he wasn't particularly happy, because he was saying, why aren't the Canary Islands on? Because they have a similar profile, if you were to look at the data, to some of the countries they have put on, and same with the Greek islands. So he was saying that really, if they were going to put Madeira and Malta and the Balearics on, they should have been more.
Yeah, and as I said, I think you can look at the data so much, and this is probably why we don't see the data, but it is layered with a political slant. I would imagine, and this is just my opinion, that the government wanted to give us something, but they couldn't give us everything that was justified by the data. They probably want to give us something that's a step in the right direction, gives us, quite a few customers to play with, and then see how it goes. I mean, yes, probably the Canaries, the Greek islands, Cyprus probably should have been added, and they weren't. But I think that's probably more a political decision than a data-led decision.
As you say, that makes it ridiculous, doesn't it, for you as a tour operator and an airline trying to plan? So I'm going to come on in a minute, Steve, to what you've done in response to this. But just before we move on from this layering of different things on the data, the FCDO advice is important, and it always has been, because it hasn't always aligned with what the government have said. And in fact, up until late last night, there was still advice against travelling to the Balearics, although I believe that's changed this morning. But I mean, that's another thing that we need to be aware of, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see the government's efficiency programme really building up momentum. They've changed the advice after a year for the Balearics, and it's now up to date. I would hope they can perhaps reduce the timescale for future changes to 7-10 minutes, something like that. But we'll see how that goes.
I mean,
It is
I mean, you're not even joking, are you? It's taken 52 weeks to update the advice for the Balearics.
Yeah, I mean, we had both the Canary Islands and the Balearic Islands on amber, for example, but the Balearics was advising against all but essential travel. The Canary Islands weren't. They've now changed that, and it's not advising against all but essential travel for the Balearics. So that's cleared one hurdle, but the Foreign Office really need to, get a move on and make a change, and again, make clear what their parameters are for deciding whether something's you can travel, or travel under caution, or you can't travel. The two should be aligned. It's just another layer of confusion. However, to be fair to the government, that's been removed this morning. But I would say to the Foreign Office, you need to get a move on, and you need to be completely aligned with the red, amber, green rankings. The government is one machine. It's not lots of separate machines. It's one machine, and it should act like that, just as we would expect our companies to act as one machine with different departments talking to each other.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. All right, well, let's talk about Jet2holidays' response then to last night's announcement. You very swiftly announced about 70 additional flights and put them on sale from July the 1st. So just explain to us what you've done.
Yeah, well, the additional flights we put on were for Malta and Madeira. We had relatively stable programs for those, but the demand started to pick up during yesterday, and we put the flights on sale. For the Balearics, we've not really done anything because some of our competitors cancelled flights up to mid-July, but we had kept the flights on sale. We put a lot of time, effort and thought into the dates that we roll to, and we decided...
Let's just remind people, you'd always pushed your start date back to the 24th of June, hadn't you? I mean,
we did. Yeah, and then, like I said, some of our competitors moved to mid-July. We moved it to the 1st of July. So we've got all the flights on sale we need. So, we had a lot of bookings last night. Our competitors aren't on sale. We are, so we're in a good place. And we don't have to rush around and redo the flying program. It's done already. So I think we probably made the right call there, and people are desperate to get away. We're able to book last night. I'm just looking at the numbers on my screen. They were very healthy. However, I would say, obviously, book now to avoid disappointment. Seats selling fast.
I love that. Get your little sales message in. What's booking more, Steve? Are people booking more to Malta because they see that as being pure green? Is there still some nervousness in terms of the other destinations that are watch list green?
It's about the same, really. I'm not sure people are making that differentiation between green watch list and green. At the end of the day, if there's a destination on green that the government wants to pull, they'll pull it. So I think people are just...
exactly. They pulled Portugal and it wasn't on a watch list. It was...
Exactly. People just want to get away. I mean, we had people ringing our contact centre yesterday and they said, look, I just want to get away. I've had enough. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I'm sick of being in this country. Just get me away. And that's what people want. And, for July, the bookings were through the roof for all 5 destinations. That's Mallorca, Menorca, Ibiza, Funchal and Malta. So it was a good night, but we've got to, we're watching the numbers like a hawk. Myself and my head of planning, David, we've been on the phone since early this morning, and we'll react accordingly as always.
Yeah, okay. And I know you're always really close to your suppliers overseas.
Yeah.
Are they all were they ready for this? Were they because it's been very hard to anticipate, and whether they've got hotels open and ready to receive and all the ground arrangements. What's happening in those destinations that have now suddenly gone green, and it's from next week?
They are. They're over the moon, obviously, but there's a couple of notes of caution from them. One, that they're a bit nervous as to the volumes they'll get. But I think as the bookings come through, they'll see that people are desperate to get away. So that should go away. The other thing is nervousness over what the British government will do, whether they pull flights at short notice as they did with Portugal. The Portuguese hoteliers, for example, spent lots of money getting hotels set up. I mean, if you've not operated a hotel for a long time, you've got to drain the air conditioning system, drain the pool, fill it up and get everything ready again, reset the fire alarms and do tests. And of course, bring staff in, and it's a big cost for them. So they're nervous that they might do this to lose it again. And then, of course, the other thing they're nervous about is overseas governments and what they may do. I mean, we've got Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron that are now saying that foreign countries, EU countries, shouldn't let British citizens in, which isn't helpful. Now, I can't see Southern European countries falling into line with Macron and Merkel, really, as they tend to be the less robust economies. And, Germany's done very well over the last few years. The Southern European countries haven't. And I would fully expect and hope those countries to say, thanks for your advice, but we're going to let the Brits in. We love the Brits, especially those that booked a package holiday they can trust with Jet2 holidays.
But I mean, you made the point about them being sort of, doing less well than Germany through this. I mean, because they're so dependent on tourism, aren't they? I mean, it's much more important for their GDP, and they will need the Brits back.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the Balearics, they have lots of foreign markets, but the British market's a huge element of that, and they need tourism. So I'm sure they will welcome us with open arms. And I must say, now is a great time, just to our travel agent partners, for people to go to Ibiza. I heard a couple of commentators on the news last night saying, I'm surprised the government put Ibiza on the green list. The clubs are closed and it's the party island. It's more than that. I don't know if you've ever been to Ibiza, but Ibiza's got a lot more to offer than Playa d'Embossa and the other resorts, San Antonio. It's a great island for families and couples as well. So I'd say to travel agents, don't be sucked into the trap of just looking for groups and young people for Ibiza. It's a fantastic time for people to get out and explore the island. So, there's a few misinformed journalists last night. It quite annoyed me, actually.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of this. Well, you neatly brought up travel agents there. I know you'll have been watching the numbers and the sales coming in, but have you also spoken to Alan at all and talked about the reaction from your trade partners?
I spoke to Alan.
You'll have swung into action, I'm sure, to get some information out about what you've got on sale.
Yeah, I spoke to Alan several times yesterday, and him and his team working very hard, liaising with the travel agents, helping them as much as we can. And it's great to see bookings come in. I mean, I was looking, it was the best thing on my screen last night, much better than documentaries, films, etc. I was watching at my sales dashboard that updates in real time. It's a great watch. Well, it was last night. It's been a bit depressing.
Forget your Netflix box sets.
Exactly. Exactly. Travel agents, towards the end of yesterday, there were lots of bookings coming in. We're fully expecting that to pick up again today. And I would say to travel agents, please remember the companies that have looked after you. There might be lots of incentives out there and lots of companies desperate for you to book with them, but remember the companies that stayed loyal to you, treated you well, refunded you. I know it sounds like a sales pitch, but, well, it is a sales pitch, but we looked after travel agents all the way through this and continue to do so. A travel agent partner is for life, not just for other times of the year.
Yeah. All right. I want to just talk about another thing that has cropped up over the last week, and it's this sort of rumour around the government recognising double vaccinated travellers.
Yeah.
And then relaxing the quarantine rules. I mean, it's been talked about a lot, and we're expecting, they're now saying some announcement, and they've sort of said it could be later this year. Very vague. and they said they'll update us next month. So what do you make of that? I mean, it would make quite a difference, wouldn't it?
It'd make a huge difference for doubly vaccinated customers to be allowed back without going into quarantine from amber countries. If you look at the vaccination rate, 62% of the adult populations had both vaccines, 80% have had one vaccine, and that will obviously continue to increase. As I've said before, the vaccine either works or it doesn't. And if it does work, there's no reason why this shouldn't be put in place, pretty soon. Now, we understood the government would make an announcement up until yesterday on Monday, which is one of the checkpoint announcements, the 28th of June. But I was getting a bit worried last night from the language, because they said, oh, yes, we're going to do this, but it'll be later on in the year. Now, I don't know what later on in the year is. 30th of December is later on in the year. So I think they're probably trying to eke a bit longer out of it before they make the announcement. But if the vaccine works and they keep going on about how well we've done on the vaccine program,
beating and stuff, yeah.
Well, yes, and also let's not forget, this government is letting several thousand UEFA officials into the country without any form of quarantine. So, obviously, UEFA have put the foot down, and money talks. So all these people are allowed in without any form of quarantine whatsoever. We don't know where they've been, and we're still under these massive restrictions. So. People are allowed to sporting events. You saw some of the football. They're going to allow, 60,000 people into Wembley?
Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. Travel isn't a second-class industry. Let's do it. Let's do it now. If people are vaccinated, then there is no reason at all. Obviously, I'm not a qualified epidemiologist, but if people have had the vaccine,
you've got better at it in the last year.
Exactly. But if the vaccine works and 62% of the population have had both vaccines, then put it in place. Be bold. That's what the government has to do. Be bold, because they've hid too long behind the scientists. The data is improving. Yes, I know we've got the Indian variant, but let's be clear, the reason we've got the Indian variant is because they shut the borders too late. So be bold. Give doubly vaccinated customers the chance to travel more and not quarantine when they come back. The virus either works or it doesn't work. If it does work, do it. If it doesn't work, be honest and tell us.
Yeah, exactly. This thing about the football, actually, that was absolutely riling people at the Day of Action protest this week. I mean, one of the agents that works really well with you, Idle Travels, Tony Mann.
Tony Mann.
He was furious. I mean, he was saying that
surprised.
the government was making a fool out of the travel industry, and he said it was shameful, it was a disgrace. I mean, he was really angry, and I think it's really brought it home. I mean, you've explained it there really, really well. But I mean, it's like we're just normal people who want a holiday. We've got quarantine, but as you say, when you're part of football VIP group, you're okay.
Well. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge football fan, and yes, of course, I'd love to see football in the UK, but I'm quite happy to sacrifice that at the moment. I've got several thousand colleagues that have been sat home for months, waiting very patiently on furlough. The whole company has been on a pay cut for over a year. And again, everyone's been very cooperative and very patient. And I'd just like to say thanks to all the colleagues for their support. Bear with us, we'll be back soon. But it's so disappointing when people have done that and made huge sacrifices over the last 12 months, just because some UEFA official that's, coming to watch the football isn't required to quarantine. The first thing is it's insane, and the second thing is I think it's utterly wrong and disrespectful to the tens of thousands of people that have made huge sacrifices. You're a sole trader travel agent that's on the edge. You've had virtually no income. The income you are getting now, you can't actually use that till the customer travels. So you're still in this state of limbo. And yet these people can just come into the country, watch football, have the prawn sandwiches and champagne, and then bugger off back to where they came from. It's wrong.
You're right. Okay. Conscious of your time, Steve.
No, it's fine. Not at all.
Okay. Just talk to us. I know you pushed back Turkey again. I mean, clearly you just, that's not going to come on anytime soon. But that's a big destination for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big disappointment actually that Turkey's still on the red list. I thought it might have been promoted to the amber list, because if you look at the data, it's improving. The infection rates are coming down, the vaccination rates are going up, and I think it warrants being on the amber list. We've currently put flying back to commence on the 22nd of July, and we'll review that. We're talking to the Turkish government, who are giving the British government as much data as they can, all the data they ask for. But again, I'd like to hear a bit of clarity on Turkey. Is the decision to keep Turkey on the red list 100% data-based, or is there an element of political layering on top of that? The fact that the government, took Turkey off sale last year because there was some query over the data. Is that why Turkey's on the red list? Again, I think we need to be clear, because you look at the data for Turkey, it's improving and it's a lot better than some of the areas in the EU.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just transparency, really. That's what we want. We need to plan in advance. Starting an airline operation is not like getting in your car and turning the key again. It takes a lot of planning and organisation. And if we could understand the criteria that the government use and the parameters they look at, we'd all be a lot happier.
Well, of course, that was one of the demands of this travel day of action that we mentioned just a second ago. People want to be able to understand this data. They want the government to implement their traffic light scheme as it was intended, which of course hasn't been done. And even though we've got this little, bit of good news today, it's still not really based on based on the sort of the criteria they set out. So. What do we do, Steve? I mean, because we're still not getting what we want. I mean, do we have to just keep up the lobbying, or and what did you make of the day of action?
Yeah, we do have to keep up the lobbying. I mean, yeah, we've had a victory, but we shouldn't stop now. Have you ever seen the film The Shawshank Redemption? He writes off to the library and asks for loads of books. And he writes loads and loads and loads of letters, and eventually he gets a box of books. And as soon as he gets the box of books, he writes 2 letters a week and asks for more books. And that's how we should be and we should not stop until the conditions for travel are like they were 2 years ago. Let's not fall into the trap of this new normal. If we're vaccinated, we should go back to normal. And, governments have a habit of doing this. They change things, they make things a bit harder, they take things away, and you never get them back. I want them back. I know what it was like when we used to travel, and I want that back. And even on the green list, people say, wow, it's on the green list, it's fantastic. Don't forget, if you're on the green list, you still need a test 2 days after arrival. It's not normal.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's not normal at all.
We need to talk about the testing thing, because we mustn't forget that's still quite an expense for people. One of the things the government committed to was making sure the price really came down, and and maybe reducing the tests, or not having to have 3 at different times. So where are we with testing? Is that something else we need to keep lobbying for?
It is, yes. The government said we're committed to lower price testing, but they're also committed to, and have been for decades, to eradicating global poverty, climate change. They're committed to more affordable housing, but that never happens. The fact they're committed to something doesn't really mean anything to me. If you want to do it, you've got the power to do it. Do it. Just do it. There's been lots of instances where they've just done stuff and said, okay, well, this is for the good of the nation. Well, so is that. So is lower price test. Just do it. You can do it. Now we've got low price tests in place. We did it the other way around from some of our competitors. We didn't just go for a low price. We looked at the quality aspect first and then tried to get the price down as much as we can. So we're very confident the testing companies we've got are the right ones. But people mustn't...
Actually, Steve, sorry to interrupt you, but last time we spoke, you still hadn't gone with the testing company because you weren't convinced they would be able to return the results in time. And you were saying, actually, that was so crucial. You didn't want to raise people's hopes, and then they couldn't rely on the results. So you've now found a company that you, or
Yeah, we've got a small handful of companies we're very happy with, and we went through a very strenuous set of tests with them. And if they failed, that was it; they were out. But we started off from the quality and the ability to deliver side, rather than going for a small headline price. Because you just go on price, people just say, okay, well, give me so many thousand tests and I'll give it you for this amount, and then it'll just all fall apart, as we've seen with other companies. I think they had great difficulties when they didn't deliver. But I think it's a very important point that people mustn't forget. Let's not get too carried away with this green list. You still need a test 2 days after arrival in the UK, and that is not normal. In fact, that shouldn't be green, because green sort of implies everything's great. Green's go, green's great, green is no problems. Well, it is still a problem, because it's massively different than travel was 2 years ago. And I think this is something we have to keep up with. We've got to get back to how we 2 years ago. And everyone should do that. Everyone should get a piece of paper and write down what travel used to be like 2 years ago and leave it somewhere. And when the government make these big pronouncements, just compare what we've got against how it was 2 years ago.
I was just going to say, do you think there's a danger that after having nothing for so long, we're going to be so grateful for these scraps that we're thrown, that we're going to sort of accept that? And what you're saying is that we need to not just accept that and keep fighting for it to get back to how it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that happens a lot. The governments will sometimes, not this one necessarily, but governments sometimes leak stories. Oh, taxes are going up by 20%, and there's a massive uproar, and taxes go up by 10%, and everyone's happy because it's not 20%. But the fact is, they've gone up by 10%. And it's similar with this. We're all happy because we're traveling. Oh, it's fantastic, we're on the green list. Well, I don't remember having to take a PCR test 2 years ago, 2 days after arrival. And as I said, everyone should write down what it used to be like and fix in the mind what it used to be like, because over time you get used to things. If you get in a hot bath, after a few seconds, it's not hot anymore, it's nice. And you get used to it. And we shouldn't get used to how things are now. We should remember how things used to be and insist on the government they make travel as easy, convenient as it used to be. And that's what I want. I am not happy till I get back to the old normal. I will remain grumpy, miserable, and not smile anymore until we get back to how we used to be.
I just want to ask you one thing. I don't know if you saw, Steve, but last time we chatted and we put this webcast out, there was a lot of really complimentary comments on it. People were really interested and appreciated what you said, but there were quite a few calls for Steve Heapy for Prime Minister.
Well, the trouble is, to become Prime Minister, you need to be accepted by a political party. I think that would be highly unlikely. And secondly, I would probably get banned from the House of Commons about 3 minutes after I got in. I'm not sure I would fit in at all, to be honest. I think politicians require an element of diplomacy, holding back, saying things in a nice way, and I'm not clever enough to do that. I just say what comes into my head. I'm not clever enough, Lucy. I just say what's there. I can't think of anything worse.
You are, no, I'm sure. You are now on the ABSA board, though. How's that going? And obviously they were there in force leading the lobbying efforts, not just Westminster, it was obviously all around the country. How is that going?
Very well. I mean, the ABSA board, I've spent a lot of time talking to Mark Tanzer, the CEO, and Alistair, the chairman, and we're all doing what we can to help the industry. Now, ABSA has challenges, as lots of other organisations does. The subscription amounts are down, etc. There's a huge demand for the services, and let's not forget, ABSA is a company that has to be solvent. It can't, it's not a government organisation. It can't just ask the Treasury for more money. So we've got to have a good look at what we can provide and how we do that better. There is the survey that's gone out to ask members what they really want from ABSA, and that's what we want. We want to give the members what we want, and we want to give value for money. I think it's a very relevant organisation, and I think in the past I've probably been a bit critical for ABSA, but being close to it now and being on the board, there's some great people work for ABSA, and they are trying their best to make life easier for agents. And I don't think we should underestimate the huge amount of lobbying that ABSA do, and the huge amount of behind the scenes work. Sometimes all people see is the odd article from ABSA or whatever, but there's a huge back of house machinery that's in place constantly to keep travel agents supported, and everybody on the ABSA board wants to improve things, but ABSA are reliant on membership fees, and they've got costs as well. It's just like any other business that's having a tough time at the moment, but ABSA is still there. It's still relevant, and it's looking to become more relevant by listening to the members more and doing what the members want.
Yeah. All right. And just finally, Steve, we have documented, haven't we, that the summer was getting closer and closer, and if something didn't happen, there were some businesses, both large and small, but a lot of the independent agents that you've just talked about, they kept describing it as crunch time. We're staring down the barrel of a gun here, because it's really getting closer. If we don't get a good summer, we're in real trouble. Yeah. So do you think what happened yesterday has staved that off for a bit? Is it a bit of a stay of execution? Is it an absolute savior? Will it save everyone?
Well, I hope so. I think life is going to get tough for travel agents, particularly the independent travel agents that perhaps don't have access to funding that the bigger organisations do. We've got flights on from the 1st of July, and therefore travel agents can book all the destinations on the green list from that date. And the good thing about booking that period, very shortly they will be able to get hands on the money, because once the customer's departed, the commission is yours to keep. So it's not a sort of, we got loads of bookings, but we're not going to get anything till next year. Promote these holidays with Jet2 holidays for the next couple of weeks, and very shortly you'll start getting cash in the bank. But it's only the beginning of the end. Travel agents, we've got the furlough scheme that starts to taper from the 1st of April, increased costs. We have probably rent holidays that will come to an end. Businesses might have taken loans that they're going to have to start paying back. Governments and local councils will want to replenish the reserves that have been depleted, probably by putting council tax up, rates, even things that affect people indirectly, parking fees. If they put parking fees up in town centre, that's another blow to travel agents. So it's going to be a very, very tough time. And I think the other thing we need to do is, again, up the lobbying. COVID seems to have distracted us from everything, but up the lobbying for support for town centres when this finishes, because if you ever come up north, Lucy, it's
don't give me that. I do come up north.
If you drive past Watford Gap Services, there's this whole part of the country that you can explore. I'm only joking. You have been to our offices, but the towns, particularly in the north, there's not a lot of sort of big shops there. And I think the government needs to put some real effort into it. Change the use. Allow people to have residential properties on the high street, and these high streets will become like the towns of the old days. You've got a few houses, you've got shops, and when people start living there, you'll get bars, restaurants, corner shops, cafes, all sorts of things, and it'll regenerate. But just expecting businesses now, particularly after the last 18 months when people have got used to ordering stuff online, just expecting businesses to take a huge gamble and open up shops and reinvigorate the high street themselves, I don't think it's going to happen. The government needs to get involved and help these businesses. Now, sorry, I'm going on a bit here, but again, I'd like to congratulate some of our travel agent partners, because they've changed the models. They've had call centres, they've had social medias, they've marketed a different way. They've done a fantastic job in supporting their customers. Now, they might want to keep an element of that, but I think there is still a huge part of their business that could be high street, and the government needs to put support into this.
Yeah, well, like you said right at the outset, Steve, this is a first step of 1,000 steps. It's a really long way to go, obviously still through the pandemic, but as you say, the ramifications of this whole global health crisis that, hitting the high street, like you say, it's going to be long term, isn't it? So we do need to keep up that lobbying.
Yeah. And I think that should be something that, well, it's certainly something I'm going to be doing after the COVID pandemic. We want to get some ministers that perhaps don't spend a lot of time in the north. Let's get them up north. I'll take them around my town centre, Leigh. And there's a lot that needs to be done there.
Yeah.
And there's thousands of town centres like that. We need to reinvigorate the town centres, because the travel agents going forward, they're not just going to be a shop on the high street. They can be a community hub, and again, we can perhaps change the way they're perceived in that way. There's a bright future, but it needs the government to put as much effort into reinvigorating the high street as they have done into COVID over the last 18 months. And the thing is, the governments have proved when they want to do something, when they really put effort into it, they can do it.
Yeah.
So they can do it for the high street.
All right. Well, I wish I could say that I think ministers watch these broadcasts, Steve, but I'm not sure they do. But anyway, we're so grateful for your time. I think I got a few more, just one little half smile out of you today. So, God, if they actually put the right countries on the list, what's that going to, we don't know, we'd have a party, aren't we, if we actually get the ones that should be on the list?
It will be. It'll be a very happy day when more countries go on. But again, we've got to make sure that ministers don't sort of say, okay, you've got more countries on the green list. That's it. Job done. I can put this file in the archives now. It's going to take businesses a long time to rebuild. We've talked about small businesses. They've gone deferred rent to pay, maybe deferred rates, deferred VAT, etc. Loans to repay. It's going to take a long time to rebuild. And of course, if shops have disappeared from the high street, there's less reason for people to come on the high street. So there's a lot of work to do, and well, that's life really, isn't it? We finish one thing, get COVID out of the way. There's then another 100 things we need to do, but that's what makes it such a good industry. You never get bored. You get a bit tired, but you don't get bored.
Yeah, and you did say there was light at the end of the tunnel, so there is still a bright future for the trade, and we've got a bit of an opportunity now with a few destinations having gone on, as you said, Steve, to get selling and making some cash in the next few weeks.
Go on to the Jet2 Holidays trade site. There are thousands of holidays there, and for the 1st of July onwards. Book some holidays early on in July, and very shortly you will have the commission in your bank, and your business will be coming stronger with every package holiday you can trust that you book.
You need to open another base, Steve. You need to come down to Gatwick.
Oh dear, I'm a bit tired at the moment, Lucy.
Not for now.
No, I'm gonna have a sleep at the weekend. Well, I'm playing football on Saturday. I'm playing for the Jet2 All Stars.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got various soap stars playing. Andy Burnham's playing, so I'll be talking to him about the reinvigoration of town centres and.
This is a charity match you play every year, is it?
No, we have a few. We've got a football team. It's got various soap stars, Kirk and Tyrone out at Coronation Street, and some ex-professional footballers play for us, some ex-Man United players, and we play a few matches for charity and raise a bit of money and try and make a day of it.
And where do you play, Steve? Are you a striker, a midfield dynamo, defender?
I used to be a central defender in the old days, and I'm too slow now. I've lost what little pace I have. I've lost, and I'm probably a liability playing at the back now because I don't have the pace. So I play up front.
Oh, glory, taking the glory.
Well, just you know, if you can't score, just give the opposition a good kick in. That cheers me up.
All right. Well, we wish you luck for that. Let us know how you get on.
I will. I'll be lobbying Andy Burnham.
Do.
You know, and he is aware of our plight. He used to be MP for Lee. It's not just Lee I'm going to be talking about, but it is an example of how northern town centres are. So we've got to keep going on that
one. If he doesn't listen, just chop him down.
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, look, it's great to see you again.
Thanks, Lucy.
We'll speak again soon. But thanks so much to Steve Heapy from Jet2 Holiday. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.